Joining us now, though, to talk about usually this time, review the past week, review the week to come, more importantly, is former ACT MP, former regional councillor, former city councillor, former mayoral candidate, lawyer and businesswoman Hilary Calvert, and she joins us now. Hilary, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on. Good morning to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Listen, you wanted to talk about the Australian election, and I will talk about it in a second. But one of the things that I did and I searched for in enormously inadequate coverage of the Australian election, and I can't even accuse just New Zealand media of doing that, but Australian media as well, was what happened really. And so all I know is that there was apparently, and I know this because somebody called Aziz El Saafan told me on TVNZ last night, there was a bloodbath called the Australian election, at which the Liberal National Party coalition were massacred electorally, and the Australian Labor Party, who apparently were relayed as the most popular of parties, and their Prime Minister, Albanese, depending on, say, tomato or tomato, was elected or re-elected for the first time in 21 years. I've had an Australian Prime Minister re-elected. And so I naturally thought, oh gosh, I wonder what percentage of the votes they got. And then I went looking for that and discovered that the votes that the Australian Labor Party got for their first preferences and the votes that the Liberal National Coalition got were roughly the same. It was just the vagaries of the Australian voting system that delivered the result. The first preference votes were almost exactly the same. The Labor Party and the Liberal Coalition got the same number of votes as their first preference. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
And that's that there's different ways of producing, people attempting to produce more democracy. I mean, our way is thought by some to be more democratic, and at least you have a variety, the MMP system, but it's very hard to change them if you've got one anyway.
Yes, exactly. But if you look at it, I'm just adding it up now, 31, 34, 35. The Liberal National Coalition, this give you this staggering figure. Of the first preference votes, so that's your turnout of 89% of the votes being counted in Australia at the moment, Hilary. God, they're slow. It's only 47 or 48% on the night. They've been counted on the first preferences, so I tick, this is the party I want. So they're my number one choice. And of the number one choice, 35.5% of the vote went to the Liberal National Coalition across Australia, 35.5. 32.58% went to Labor. Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah.
And then because of the preferential system that they've got, which is sort of mini STV, they've ended up with this result. But it's largely because of the vagaries of their electoral system.
But I guess they also can't start counting them in advance, which you could with first past the post, since half of them were done early.
I guess that's right. No, that's a good point you're making. Yeah,
you can't shift them to their preferences unless you know what everyone else is. I mean, sort of, you can't do them before they're all in, can you?
No, listen, the figures I've just given to are stunning. And so I can't believe them. I mean, there's something apart. I'm just going, it can't be right. But I've gone to the Australian Electoral Commission. I've looked at the headline first preferences by party, and I've simply added them together to get that the coalition parties got 35.5% of the first preferences, and the Labor Party got 32.6%. Now, unless somebody tells me I'm wrong, that's the way it ended up. The Greens, who are regarded as having had a disastrous night because they lost, I think, 2 of their 3 seats in Parliament, they actually got 12.5 or 12.3% of the vote. Gee, that's quite a high turnout, isn't it, really, of first preferences?
That's sort of like the French system, where you have you can express your displeasure in the first round, and then you have another round to actually vote for who you want to, sort of. Their system is a different version again, and what people do with that. So here, give you an example in Australia here as to why I think part of this happened. It's compulsory to vote. So I'm sitting there and I'm a bit disgruntled. Everybody around me is disgruntled. It's just not working out that well for me. And even if it is, I know that it's not working out for my daughter or my cousins or whatever else. The economy's a bit crap. You've just had enough of all sorts of things. And COVID probably started it. And Trump really pisses you off. And you can't vote for Trump or not. But it turns out everybody's commenting as if you can. So here you are in a little not very happy position. And then it turns out the government has said, I don't care for your mental health as to whether you're happy or anything like that, but you will put a mark on this piece of paper. And so you've got to do something. You've got to go along, just in case this is the year they decide to ping people for not voting, because they don't much, but they might any time. So you vote, and so you become even more disgruntled, surely. And at that stage, you're just thinking, a pox on all your houses is probably what you're thinking. And somebody says, yeah, but look at Albanese, he's just been lying through his teeth, all this money he says he would give us last time. Complete load of bollocks. And then somebody says, yeah, but Dutton isn't really doing, he's not. In any case, he looks a bit like Trump and we hate Trump. And then the disgruntled person, the voter, sits there and says, oh, pox on all your houses. I don't care, really. They're as bad as each other. And I would be interested to know, rather than an exit poll on who you voted for, I would like to see an exit poll on what motivated your vote.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what has happened.
Well, and that's the other... Listen, that's what I got last night from this midget Arab person, Aziz El Sa'afan, with the punch and grow hairstyle. And he was telling me that in part, and in good part, the result was due to the quote-unquote Trump effect. And a number of other left-wing media this morning in New Zealand have done exactly the same. Newsroom, for example, is saying Australia-Canada elections sparked talk of Trump effect. But
I don't think it's all about Trump. I just think the Trump effect contributed to people's grumpiness and feeling that the whole world's falling apart because you can't even trust the person who's supposed to be responsibly in charge of the free world, who's gone rogue. So, people are probably a bit worried about where we're all going.
Yes, but at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, there was also another election held, and they were the local elections in Britain. They were held last week too, if you remember.
Yes.
And what were those results? Those results were somebody who's really snuggled up to Donald Trump, and was at his election night party at Mar-a-Lago or whatever it is, was Nigel Farage, and the leader of the Reform Party. They've just completely annihilated the Conservatives and Labor at a whole series of local government elections and taken a key by-election off what was a very safe Labor seat and won it for Reform. Well, if that's the Trump effect, it's sure working.
No, but the Trump effect on British people might be a wee bit different, and they're in a different sort of part of their electoral cycle. If there's two major parties, which they've had for 200 years or whatever it is, and they come and go, and occasionally one gets absolutely trounced, and the other one, that one has to go and look at its wounds and try and reform itself and things. Those come and go.
But they are deliberately in UK embracing, and certainly the opinion polls are suggesting that as well, but in those electoral results, they are deliberately embracing the destabiliser, the destroyer, somebody who's going to upend the political system in Britain because they are so disenchanted with it.
Which is the people who were disenchanted in America voting for Trump, arguably. Just with a natural disapproval of politicians.
And the political
And
processes.
so people who don't behave like politicians or the political process, especially if they can say whatever they want and it doesn't matter, they're not going to be held to it or anything. So I think they're different. I can see why Canada and Australia are more similar.
Well, you were in Australia recently, but also we had two commentators there last week. We've got Ben Espiner, who was there, and also Jackie Lane. Jackie's been there a fair bit longer. And both of those two didn't pick what was going to happen. I've just had a professor from Queensland on a different matter this morning. He went, God, we got a shock and a surprise. But what was the shock and the surprise? That at a time
I don't think it should have been. I don't think it should have been that surprising. When I was there 3 or 4 weeks ago, whenever it was, Dutton was struggling to get there. I mean, I think people wanted an alternative, but he wasn't really providing it. And the Trump effect was only relevant, I think, in the way that Albanese threatened people with Peter Dutton being Trump. And Peter Dutton was stupid enough to produce some behaviours that were like that.
But it wasn't just that. It was everything else. I mean, the whole campaign was shot from day one, which is what Jackie's been noted over weeks and weeks.